Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NFL predictions. This is week number 2 here for the 2017 season, coming off of a fantastic week, one that's going to be hard to top. And usually week 1's the toughest week because you never really know what you're going to get, but we did a pretty fantastic job last week. There was only 15 games because the Buccaneers and Dolphins was postponed, but we went 12-3 the opening weekend. I also put my picks in on ESPN.com's Pigskin Pick'em. It's just an easier way to keep track of them. I'll probably use that graphic to show you guys all my picks. Yeah, we went 12-3, and the average person on ESPN Pick'em went 9-6. So 12-3 is fantastic. We're going to run through each game last week real quick. I'll tell you who I picked, who ended up winning. Last week in my predictions, I was doing the spread. From now on, I'm not doing that. Who cares? The NFL, the spread's so tiny for most games, it really doesn't matter. Whereas, college, it's more impactful to say, oh, I think so-and-so beats so-and-so, and they covered this 13-point spread. But, in the NFL, it's like, who cares if I think the Bengals beat the Browns and cover a 2-point spread? Like, it's meaningless. So I'm not going to keep track of the spread for this series. We're just doing straight-up games. So much parity in the NFL. Spreads don't matter. Irrelevant, in my opinion. So anyway, let's just jump into last week. Obviously, the season kicked off with the Kansas City Chiefs going to New England on Thursday Night Football. And not what most people expected, myself included. I picked the Patriots to win, as did 94% of people on ESPN.com. And they didn't. The Chiefs, it looked like the Patriots would win easily. They marched right down the field on their opening possession to score. And then the Chiefs turned it over on their next possession. But then the Chiefs just ended up hanging around and they stayed in it. They were trailed for the majority of the game. But they ended up taking the lead early in the fourth quarter and then added on 2 more touchdowns and ended up winning this game 42-27. So the Chiefs looked a lot better than I think a lot of people expected. I don't think the Patriots necessarily looked bad. They definitely weren't great, and they're not as good as they probably will end up being or can be. They didn't turn the ball over. They were 5 for 15 on third down, which, it's whatever. It's not great, not terrible. Brady was 16 for 36 for 247. So, that's not Brady numbers, but he looked great in the first half, so I'm not really sure what happened there. I don't know if it's just adjustments or what, but anyway, the Chiefs win. So first pick of the week, we got it wrong. Not a good start, but we bounced back nicely because the next game was the Falcons and the Bears. Pretty obvious conclusion. Pretty much everybody thought the Falcons would win. I don't remember what the spread is. I don't know what I said about it. I don't really care anymore, like you said. Spread is meaningless in the NFL. Bottom line is, I picked the Falcons to beat the Bears. A lot closer than probably a lot of people expected. But, week 1 on the road, what are you going to do? They won by 6. Nothing to complain about. A win is a win in the NFL. Then we had the New York Jets going on the road to take on the Buffalo Bills. This is another one where the majority of people agreed on who would be the winner because I think a lot of people realize that the Jets may be the worst NFL team in the league. Although it looks like they might have some competition with some of these teams' performances week 1. Anyway, the Bills end up winning 21-12, and it really wasn't that close. The Jets only gained 214 yards of offense. The Bills almost doubled that with 408. Jets turned it over twice, the Bills once. Bills had 23 first downs to the Jets 11. While the score looks like it's a 2-possession game, you just never really got the sense that the Jets would do it, even when down 1 in the second quarter, and then when they went down 2 late in the third. Those seemed like miracles that they were getting points and not something that they would do again, and the Bills ended up responding with that last Jets touchdown with one of their own that really put the game away, and the Jets just never got back into it. Not to mention Todd Bowles down 9 points, punting the ball to the Bills with 4 minutes left inside Bills territory. Or it was near midfield, that's all I know. And what are you doing, dude? Playing not to get blown out? Anyway, the next game was an upset, apparently. Was the Ravens at the Bengals. I don't remember the spread, but I know the Ravens were underdogs, and you see here on ESPN.com, 71% of people picked the Bengals. And I just didn't see it. I told you last week, I don't think the Bengals are a very good team this year, even at home against the Ravens, who I don't think are great. I just think the Ravens are a better team, and I don't see the Bengals being really any good. I said they'd win 6 or 7 games last week. Well, I'm going to adjust that to 5 or 6 this week because they look even worse than I expected. They got shut out by the Ravens. And this isn't the 2001 Ravens, so there's not really any excuse for that. The Ravens only gained 268 yards of offense, but the Bengals only had 221. The Bengals turned it over 5 times. 4 interceptions and 1 fumble. So maybe they can clear that up in the weeks ahead and pick up some wins. But yeah, I don't see the Bengals being any good. Their offensive line's not good. I knew their offensive line wasn't going to be any good, and they gave up 5 sacks. And a lot of those interceptions were, throws that Dalton probably wouldn't have made if he wasn't getting his ass beat all day. Even if not on an interception, he was getting rushed or anything. Just the thought of, I've been hit 5 times. I need to get this ball out quickly, enters the quarterback's head, and he starts, throwing passes he shouldn't be passing or throwing them too soon and, resulting in turnovers. Anyway, we got that right. So it's 3 straight after the Patriots mishap. So then the next game was the Steelers going on the road to take on the Browns. Steelers were big favorites in this game. The Browns ended up covering whatever the spread was. They only lose by 3, 21-18. Pretty much nobody had the Browns winning. And, the final score looks nice for the Browns, but they never really seem to get back in the game. The Steelers took the lead early, and then the Browns ended up tying it late in the first. And then nothing happened until the Steelers had a late touchdown to retake the lead at the end of the half. And then the Browns have a field goal in the third to make it a 4-point game, and then the Steelers have another touchdown that kind of puts it away because the Browns don't end up scoring again until 3 minutes left. So while, the final score looks pretty close, you never got that sense of, maybe the Browns will do it. Just like the Bills and Jets game. But if you look at the stat sheet, it looks like the Browns go toe-to-toe with the Steelers in a lot of the categories. So, the Browns could be a decent team this year. Who knows? Maybe they pick up 6 wins. That might be an overstatement, but we'll see. I think they might be pretty decent. And by decent, I mean decent by Browns standards, which would be 6 wins or so. All right, next up was the Arizona Cardinals going on the road to take on the Detroit Lions. 65% of people on ESPN.com had the Cardinals to win. I did not. I said the Lions would win because West Coast teams, and especially the Cardinals, have a hard time playing these 1 p.m. Eastern games. And flat out, I also think the Lions are a better team than the Cardinals, and I think that was proven on Sunday. Even though it didn't start out that way, the Lions looked awful for about a quarter and a half. The Cardinals jumped out to a 10-point lead early. They had a pick 6 early. But yeah, at the end of the day, Stafford was great, threw 4 touchdowns. I think he had close to 300 yards and 1 interception, which if you really look at it, that pick 6, his intended target is being held. So I don't know if you want to call that pass interference. It was within 5 yards, so, the contact is fine, but the ball was in the air, which makes it pass interference. Doesn't matter how close you are to the line of scrimmage. If the ball's in the air and you're pushing somebody or holding somebody, it's pass interference. But either way, Stafford ends up being fantastic on the day. Carson Palmer, not so much. He throws 3 interceptions, including a pick 6 of his own at the very end. David Johnson goes out with a wrist injury. He actually had a costly fumble near the end of the third quarter, which really kind of flipped the game on its head because at that point, the Cardinals were actually up 17-9 with under 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. And then David Johnson fumbles. Lions start their drive at the Cardinals' 10, and they score a quick touchdown. Now they're only down 2 at the end of the third quarter, which means technically yet another fourth quarter comeback for Stafford and the Lions. They score 2 touchdowns in the fourth, both to Kenny Galladay, the rookie. They go up 28-17. Carson Palmer immediately throws a pick 6. It's 35-17 at that point, and it's a blowout. Cardinals score a garbage time touchdown. Doesn't matter. Lions look good. A lot of overreaction in Arizona. I'm not sure that they're terrible. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 6 or 7 games, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see them in a wild card or maybe even compete for the NFC West. Because quite frankly, I don't think the NFC West is any good. All right, next was the Oakland Raiders at the Titans. This one was interesting. I remember that the Raiders were an underdog in Vegas for some reason. I didn't understand that one. West Coast, on making a trip, but I just didn't see it for this game like I did the Arizona-Detroit, because the Raiders are a better team than the Titans. And it's reflected here with the ESPN picks. 74% of people picked the Raiders, despite them technically being an underdog. They ended up winning 26-16. Pretty even game, actually. But the Titans just couldn't get in the end zone, and that was the difference in this one. And then next, we had my second pick of the week that was incorrect. It was the Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to take on the Washington Redskins. And this game was pretty 50-50, as I said last week for me. As you see, 54% of people picked the Redskins, so it's a pretty tough game. And since it was 50-50, I just went with the Redskins at home, figured they might get it done. And not only do they not get it done, they end up losing 30-17. The Eagles score 11 points in the fourth to get to that deficit. Washington hung in there for the most part. There were 6 turnovers in this game, 4 of them for Washington, 3 of them being fumbles. So not good at all for the Redskins at the end of the day. Not good for us since I had them winning. Then the next game was the other game I got wrong. So the final of the 3 games I got wrong in week 1, it was the Jacksonville Jaguars going on the road to take on the Houston Texans. I knew that the Texans offense would not be any good. I think everybody knew that. I believe I mentioned that last week. But I figured that their defense would be good enough to hold the Jaguars, who aren't any good, to, maybe like 10 points or something. And then I just trusted the Texans to score more than that. But that didn't happen. The Jacksonville Jaguars end up winning 29-7. And it wasn't even that close. Jaguars were up 19-0 at the half. The Texans finally put one possession together to start the second half, but it's quickly responded to by another Jaguars touchdown, and yeah, it doesn't help when you turn the ball over 4 times, which the Texans did, 3 fumbles and an interception. The Jaguars did not turn it over. Other than that, as far as yardage and time of possession, first downs, it's actually a pretty even game. So it's just those turnovers, they're costly. And yeah, the Texans offense not looking good at all. Next up was the Indianapolis Colts going on the road to take on the Los Angeles Rams. Rams, don't be fooled by this game. Most people picked them to win, as you see, because the Colts without any luck might just be worse than the New York Jets. And this game ended up being 46-9. It was ugly. Colts turned it over 3 times. Rams turned it over once. And yeah, it was just all Rams from the get-go, really. But yeah, the Rams, I don't think they're suddenly some offensive juggernaut. It's just Colts aren't a good team. And 46-9, that's still impressive, but I'm not sure they're going to live up to that. And what the hell's up with the Rams? They were up 39-9, and with like 6 minutes left in the game, they're throwing deep and running hurry-up offenses so they can score another touchdown to end for it. I'm not sure what that's up to. I guess if you're only going to win 1 or 2 games a year in front of the 20,000 fans that show up, you want to look good doing it. But yeah, I didn't like that. I don't like the Colts. I'm a Lions fan, so I don't really care either way between the Colts and the Rams. But I didn't understand why the Rams were doing that. It was kind of bullshit, if you ask me. All right, next was the Seattle Seahawks going on the road to take on the Green Bay Packers. What an awful game. Both these teams look awful. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that it was first game, but geez. Packers end up winning 17-9. I picked the Packers to win. And yeah, it just wasn't good, really, at all. Aaron Rodgers wasn't good until later in the game. He ended up throwing 28 for 42, 311 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Russell Wilson didn't do anything. And statistically, Green Bay dominated, but that also helps when you don't get any penalties called on you. At the end of the day, they both end up getting 8 penalties called on them for 70 yards for the Packers and 50 for the Seahawks. But I watched that game. It was ridiculous. But that's what happens when you're in Lambeau. Coming from a Lions fan. Yes, I'm a little salty. But, whatever. The good news is, if you're a fan of any other team in the NFC, these 2 teams are supposed to be 2 of the top teams in the NFC. They're very beatable, both of them. Nothing impressive at all for either of these teams. Neither rushed for 100 yards, which is surprising for the Seahawks. But the Packers only averaged 3 yards per carry. And yeah, it wasn't until later in the game that Rodgers really started looking good. He wasn't good at all for the entire first half. Third quarter really was the only time he looked good. Even in the fourth quarter when they were trying to put the game away, Rodgers didn't really do anything. They only ended up tacking on a field goal with 8 minutes left. So yeah, I mean, that game is ugly. All right, next up was the Panthers at the 49ers. I picked the Panthers. They win 23-3. Panthers had a bad year last year. I figured they'd bounce back a bit, and they're playing the 49ers. Pretty easy pick here. Panthers didn't look fantastic, but you don't have to beat the 49ers. So that's that for that game. Not really worth getting into. And then we had the Giants going on the road to take on the Dallas Cowboys for Sunday Night Football. As will be a trend in my NFL picks, unless there's a complete mismatch, you have to go with the home team in these primetime games because they win way more than they lose. Especially when it's a game like the Cowboys and Giants, where the Cowboys are already the better team to begin with. This game, 19-3, completely boring as well. The Cowboys just destroyed the Giants on offense. Giants didn't have Odell Beckham, so Giants offense could do almost nothing. The Cowboys offense, they almost had 400 yards. They had the ball for 34 minutes. They had 22 first downs, no turnovers, but they only ended up with 19 points. So just a lot of drives that started off good for them, but they just stalled. In fact, they didn't have a single 3-and-out, but they punted the ball 4 times on 9 possessions. So they were getting yardage, but just not being able to continue these long drives for whatever reason. So we'll see what goes on with those teams moving forward, because neither one really, just like the Packers and Seahawks game, neither one really exceeded expectations, especially the Giants. I mean, Giants just look terrible, but anyway, the next game was Monday Night Football. First at 2, it was the New Orleans Saints going on the road to take on the Minnesota Vikings. I picked the Vikings to win. For some reason, most people had the Saints winning. I don't know. Saints aren't a good team. Their defense is complete trash. It has been for the last couple of years. And the strength of the Vikings last year, and apparently still going to be their strength this year, is their defense. If you're a Vikings fan, I wouldn't take too much away from this one because the Saints defense literally might be one of the worst in the NFL. So only putting up 29 points on them is nothing to be too excited about. However, holding Drew Brees to 27 for 37 and 291 yards and a touchdown, pretty good. He ended up with a nice game. He didn't throw an interception or anything, but when you can do that as a defense, that's about as bad as a day anybody like Drew Brees can have, so you got to be happy with that. The Saints only ended up rushing for 60 yards and 21 carries, so that was awful. And then, Dalvin Cook looked good for the Vikings in his debut, and Sam Bradford was fantastic. 27 for 32, 346, 3 touchdowns, but like I said, you got to take it with a grain of salt because the Saints' defense is garbage. So definitely look for the Vikings offense in the coming weeks, see if they can keep that up at all. I think this game was pretty obvious in terms of the pick, though. At home, Monday Night Football, your defense is good. You're going up against the teams whose defense is not. I think it was pretty obvious the Vikings would win. Maybe not a 2-possession game, just because I thought Drew Brees would be able to put up more points than the Vikings offense would, even against a terrible defense. Not more points, but, keep it close. But yeah, at the end of the day, Vikings won that one by 10, 29-19. Then finally, we had the Los Angeles Chargers going on the road to take on the Denver Broncos. I picked the Broncos to win, as did most people, and they ended up winning 24-21. It really wasn't that close. Chargers came back with 14 points in the fourth quarter to make it a 3-point game. They had a chance to send it to overtime, but they had their kick blocked to end the game. But on paper, Chargers only had 249 yards of offense to the Broncos 321. Broncos held the ball for 34 minutes to the Chargers 25. But the 2 turnovers by the Broncos, only 1 for the Chargers, makes a difference. And then Phillip Rivers, he played pretty well despite not getting a bunch of yards. He went 22 for 33 for 192, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Trevor Siemian, 17-28, 219, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think that's about the ceiling for someone like Trevor Siemian, so him playing like that was a big part of the Broncos ended up pulling this one out. But final score is another case of one that looks a little closer than it really was. If you watch the game, it seemed like the Broncos were the better team, and they controlled the game for the majority of the game. but those 2 quick scores from the Chargers, they were actually only down 3 with 7 minutes left, but were unable to capitalize on that. So that was this week. Let's just go ahead and jump into our predictions for week 2. The recaps for these NFL games will probably be longer than the predictions. For my college predictions, it's about even. My recaps usually take up half the video, and then my predictions usually take up the other half. But for the NFL, it's pretty straightforward as far as predictions go. Like I said, I'm throwing out the spreads. They're useless. So for week number 2, we kick it off on Thursday Night Football with the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Houston Texans. The Bengals do not look good at all. I said that I didn't think they'd be any good, but the Texans offense looks even worse than I expected, and I didn't expect much. On the road Thursday night, I know the Bengals have some struggles at primetime home games, but I think they bounce back from a very disappointing game against the Ravens. And I think that they get it done at home, and I'm not sure the Texans' offense will be able to match whatever the Bengals muster up. So Bengals over the Texans. Next game, the Buffalo Bills travel to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Both teams coming off of a win. Panthers with their home opener, I think they win this one. Not much to say about it. Wouldn't be surprised if the Bills upset them if we get the Carolina Panthers of last year still. But I think the Panthers are a better team this year. I think they get the job done at home against the Bills. Up next is the Chicago Bears going on the road to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay's first game after their last one was postponed. Bears coming off of a loss at home to the defending NFC champions where they kind of had a chance at the end of the game to win it. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out and play on the road against the Bucs, but I think the Bucs will be up for the challenge. I don't think the Bears are a much improved team from last year. I think the Bucs got a chance to compete for their division and at the very least compete for a wild card. So I think they come out strong and open up the season with a win. Then we got the Cleveland Browns coming off of a spirited effort at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going on the road this week to take on the Baltimore Ravens. And for this one, I'm going with the underdog. I think the Cleveland Browns come off of that performance against the Steelers, feeling really good about themselves, and they build on it, and they beat the Ravens on the road. That's right. Ravens lose to the Browns in week number 2. Count it. Wouldn't surprise me if they don't. But I like the Browns in this one. I think the Browns are going to play a lot of people tough. I think they'll play a lot of people close all year long. This game will be no exception, and I just think the Browns pull it out, get that first win of the year. Then we got the Titans going on the road to take on the Jaguars. Gross, ugly, disgusting, who cares? This game, just looking at these two teams lined up opposite of each other makes me want to puke. I picked the Titans to win. That's all I have to say. That's all that matters. Then we got the Arizona Cardinals going back on the road to take on the Indianapolis Colts. This one's interesting. I just told you about the struggles that the Cardinals especially have in the East Coast. I don't think they've won a game on the East Coast in the 1 p.m. time slot since like 2013. Or 14. They just don't have good luck playing in the Eastern time zone. Luckily for them, I believe Indianapolis is the Central time zone. And I mean, just without Andrew Luck, the Colts are so terrible that I think the Cardinals bounce back from a disappointing Week 1 performance against the Lions. And I think they win this game by 2 scores just because the Colts are awful without Andrew Luck. So I'm going with the Cardinals over the Colts. Then we have the Philadelphia Eagles going on the road, coming off of a road win against the Redskins. They go back on the road to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, coming off of that road win against the Patriots. Home opener for the Chiefs. You gotta like them at Arrowhead, especially after their performance that they had against the Patriots, but we'll see if they'll be able to carry that on. But for now, give me the Chiefs over the Eagles. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Minnesota Vikings, battle of 2 undefeated teams after 1 week. The Steelers didn't look amazing against the Browns, but now they're at home. Home opener. The Vikings look pretty good against the Saints, but the Saints defense is awful, and the Vikings defense is pretty good. So Steelers offense against the Vikings defense in Pittsburgh, I'll take over Vikings offense against Steelers defense in Pittsburgh. So give me the Steelers to beat the Vikings. That game is followed up by the New England Patriots coming off of that disappointing game against the Chiefs at home, going down to New Orleans. Yeah, they're going to New Orleans to take on the Saints. And as I mentioned, the Saints defense is awful. So I don't care where they're playing. It can be New Orleans, it can be Mexico City, it could be London, Tokyo, New England, Juneau, Alaska. The Patriots win this game easily, especially after last week, because they are out to prove that was a fluke and that they're still a Super Bowl contender. And Tom Brady and the Patriots are going to make an example out of the poor little Saints in their poor little dome down in New Orleans. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots hang 50 on them. That's how bad the Saints are. That's how much the Patriots want to prove that last week was just a misstep. To be fair, I think Brees plays pretty well in this game, probably scores 3 touchdowns, but yeah, I just don't see Tom Brady doing anything but completely shredding the Saints defense. Then we have the New York Jets going on the road against the Oakland Raiders. Oakland Raiders win. End of story. You're not going to get much out of me about the New York Jets this year. Terrible football team. Then we got the Miami Dolphins going on the road to take on the Los Angeles Chargers in front of an expected crowd of maybe 2,000 people. You know, this game, I'm just going to give the Chargers benefit of the doubt for now. They're at home. Anybody who's playing Jay Cutler, I have a good feeling about. I don't think the Dolphins are going to be any good. They didn't play last week. Chargers kind of came back against the Broncos. They're going to want to right the ship there at home. Like I said, in front of 2,000 people. But I think the Chargers get it done. Then we have the Cowboys going on the road to take on the Denver Broncos. Give me the Broncos. That's right. I got the Broncos over the Cowboys. On the road, I'm going to go with the Broncos over the Cowboys because I don't think the Cowboys are a dominant team like a lot of people perceive them to be. We'll see. They could prove me wrong. If they win here, I might change my tune. But for now, I'm waiting for them to prove it. Go into Denver and beat the Broncos, and then I'll start picking you to win these games. But for now, give me the Broncos over the Cowboys. In following that one is another underdog, at least in terms of ESPN picks. For some reason, people are picking the Los Angeles Rams to beat the Washington Redskins based off of last week. That is ludicrous. Beating the Colts is not a sign of being some fantastic team. I don't care how bad they beat them. So the Los Angeles Rams at home against the Redskins. Wouldn't surprise me if they win because I'm not so sure the Redskins are going to be any good based off of last week. But give me the Redskins to go into Los Angeles and get the win. I don't think the Rams are any good unless they repeat what they did last week. I still won't think they're any good, even if they squeak one out here. They have multiple weeks to build on for me to change my opinion on them. Then we have the Seattle Seahawks home opener coming off that loss against the Packers, hosting the 49ers. This one should be easy. Seahawks over the Niners. But if the Seahawks played like they did last week, who knows what will happen. Maybe the Niners can pull off the massive upset, but you'd have to be a crazy person or a huge 49er fan to pick the 49ers to win this one. And then we got the Green Bay Packers hitting the road to take on the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons coming off of a kind of lackluster performance in Chicago. Home opener, they're going to be hanging an NFC Championship banner. On Sunday Night Football, for some reason more people are picking the Packers in this game than the Falcons. I mean, come on. Home, primetime, home opener against a team that didn't look great against the Seahawks. And you got an offense that is 5 times better than the Seahawks. Come on, Falcons. You got to go to the Falcons on this game. Falcons over the Packers. We saw what happened last time these two teams played in Atlanta. It wasn't even close. Not calling for a repeat of that, but I am definitely calling for the Falcons to beat the Packers. And then finally, we wrap up with the Detroit Lions going on the road to take on the New York Giants. Lions coming off of a pretty impressive game against the Cardinals despite the first quarter mishaps. Giants coming off of an awful game on the road against the Cowboys. And this game, I'm not convinced that the Giants are a better team than the Lions. But at home on Monday night, like I said, you got to lean towards these home teams in these primetime games. But without their best player, or without their best player at 100%, because I think if Odell Beckham does play, he's maybe 75%. And he might be more of a decoy than he is an actual receiving threat. I'm going to go with the Lions. I said I'm a Lions fan, but trust me, if I was doing this a couple years ago, I don't just pick the Lions because I'm a Lions fan. In fact, I pick them to lose more often than I pick them to win. But when I think they're going to win, I pick them to win. And I think this is a game they are going to win. Wouldn't surprise me if they don't, because these are the type of games they always lose. But I'm not convinced that the Giants are a better team, and especially with Odell Beckham either not playing or not at 100%. If he is suddenly at 100%, Giants win. But I just don't think that's going to be the case. So I think the Lions go into New York on Monday Night Football and get a huge win. They needed last week because they got a tough schedule to start the year. Their first 5 games are brutal. If they come out of their first 5 games at 2-3, they should go to the playoffs. So they got to win one more of their next 4 to be in good position. And if they get this one done, that will be huge. Wouldn't surprise me if they don't, but I'm going to go with the Lions to beat the Giants. All right, so that's it for week 2, everybody. Thank you so much for watching and listening. A little bit of a long one here, but I think that will be the norm here for the NFL ones, as there's a lot more to break down for each individual game, I believe, as opposed to the college games. So thank you all for listening. Be sure to subscribe for the recaps of all these games next week. If I picked your team to lose and they ended up winning, you will want to hear me cry and complain, and trust me, you'll enjoy that. So yeah, tune in next week. Be sure to comment below with your predictions or your thoughts on mine. Just an opinion. As always, I'm not some genius. Whatever I say doesn't go, so don't be mad at me that I don't think your team's going to win a game. They can prove me wrong. It's okay. Everything will be fine. So thank you all for listening. I'll see y'all next week.